Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ukraine, Russia, China show on POT TV. My name is Sasha Star, and our guest today are Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
You're forgiven, Sasha. Glad to be here. Professor doesn't apply unless I'm in an actual teaching position.
Well, a doctor can become professor almost any time. So
Yeah, exactly. They're pretty much exactly right. You know, if I were to get into a teaching position, or if in some future employment someone wanted to address me as professor, I say, okay, I'll take it. I'm not going to fight you.
or you have honorary titles of professor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Honorary titles. Yeah. I kind of. I said, oh, come on. Once you've got the real thing. What do you care about honorary titles for? It's like
okay, and of course we have Ivan Kucherenko from Kiev. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hello, Jonathan. Glad to be here today in the company of Professor Doctor and Sasha Star.
I don't call you doctor. I don't call you professor.
But I'm not professor at all.
Flattery will get you everywhere, Ivan.
You're almost our war correspondent in Kiev. Okay.
Oh yeah. We must show proper respect for our war correspondent because he's the one who has the most to lose of the three of us.
Ivan, I would like to ask your opinion. It seems to me that all diplomatic track is done and over with. There is no more peace negotiations. There is no more this for that and that for this. It's done and over with. So there is only war on the front lines elsewhere, and Ukrainians are doing a little bit better rather than just keep on the front lines, but they're doing fantastic job on destroying all these refineries, oil refineries, and what's next in this war? It seems to me that the Ukrainians have to hold on until another maybe month and a half, maximum 2 months, until the weather will stop the skirmishes in the front lines. And what do you think? Is Russian going to be successful in the next few weeks?
I'm not sure Russian are going to be successful because they were not successful during the whole summer campaign, and in the August, Ukrainian armed forces liberated more territory than Russian could manage to capture during their August campaign. So they're losing captured territories in the north of Ukraine and Sumy region. Ukrainian forces are still in some districts of Kursk region, so Russians, even with the help of North Korean forces, cannot kick off Ukrainian forces from the well-equipped positions, which Ukrainian forces obviously captured there and established fortifications during the last year campaign in Kursk region. So I don't know what Russians can do. Actually, what they're increasing is that they're increasing their terror on Ukrainian civilians, and not only on Ukrainian civilians, also on Ukrainian government. This week, actually, last week, they striked a Ukrainian government building for the first time. It was a major strike on September the 7th, major strike on Kyiv, and I've got a video about that strike for today, so we can. And just today, they've striked civilians in Donetsk region, which were receiving their pensions. There was a car of Ukrposhta, Ukrainian national postal operator, which also delivers pensions to the older people, and they've struck directly with ballistic missile the people, and more than 20 are dead and more than 30 are injured. It's what happened today. So
it was not an accident. It was well planned Russian murdering attack.
So sure, we can watch the video now and then we will discuss, because it's everything is clear from the video.
Okay.
At 6 a.m. this morning, a Russian cruise missile in a direct hit on a Ukrainian government building targeted the cabinet of ministers. Yulia Sviridenko, the new prime minister, was just here. This is her office. This is where she comes to work every day. The site is completely destroyed. The smell of burning is absolutely filling everyone's lungs, and DSNS workers are desperately trying to extinguish the flames. When we walked up to the site, there's a gaping hole. It is important to remind that this is a government building, and this was a direct hit by Russia.
It's for the first time during the large-scale invasion, Russia attacks the governmental building. So this is actually office of our cabinet ministry team. So it's a headquarters of our government. At 6 o'clock in the morning, they strike this building. Fortunately, no one wounded or killed. But you might see that we are not able to work here. I don't think that Russia wants to stop. And I think it's very clear message that if we want this war stopped, we need more robust security guarantees from our partners. Of course, we need more anti-missile system to protect cities, to protect people. We need different security guarantees, boots on the ground. We need more sanctions, pressure on Russia. Otherwise, it seems that Russia does not want to stop or does not want even to start the negotiation process.
So you've seen it's a civilian object. It's a civilian car. Everyone knows how the cars of Ukrainian postal operator looks like. They're white and yellow, nor camo, not green, not military, and the civilians were just in the line for receiving their older people to receive their pensions because banks. And in the Donetsk region are not working, and because of the heavy war actually going there, because Russia has more their forces on that direction, and it constantly shells everything. But they obviously they were seen. Where they're firing. They're using drones, they're using satellites in order to target their missiles. They've seen that there are no military people, there are just civilians, and they've striked them with a direct hit. So it's another act of terror committed by Russia, another their atrocity that shows that all diplomatic efforts actually failed. Russia is not negotiable. The one that Russia did from the diplomatic efforts, so-called diplomatic efforts of President Trump, is that they've think themselves more unpunishable. They've strengthened their ties with China and North Korea. They understand that President Trump actually gave Russia more time to prepare and to continue their war, and it's bad consequences for this war for Ukraine, and it will take his desire to stop this war in 24 hours actually will make this war even longer. That's in my opinion, are the consequences of so-called diplomatic efforts of President Trump and his team.
Well, it is actually a failure of diplomacy in general, because as one of my professors once observed, diplomacy rarely solves anything. In that, in fact, it has to be backed up by a successful war. And it is mostly successful wars that have actually solved problems. And this latest effort by Russia is simply a reflection indirectly of their failure to achieve their goals by normal military means. It's what Nazi Germany did to try to defeat Great Britain.
It's strange, Jonathan, that President Trump and his team doesn't understand that to make a successful diplomacy, the Ukraine should be successful on the battlefield, and
Correct.
Ukraine cannot be successful when our major ally cuts the weapons shipments, cuts the intelligence data, actually threatens Ukraine that they will stop all military support. Of course, in this way, Ukraine is not in a strong position, and everyone said, all European leaders said to Donald Trump that before any negotiations with Putin, Ukraine should be in more favorable position, and it's not possible without obvious military support from the United States.
If I can interject, Lockheed Martin, the defense company that produces the Patriot missile, just received an order to produce 3,000 Patriot missiles, PAC-3 missiles, which is the largest which is the largest ever. So that is a very good sign. It is certainly, at least indirectly. And also, there are developments by other countries. I believe Australia, or one other company has produced a laser, 150 kilowatt laser, which is capable of taking out as many as 50 drones at a time, and which is again a very excellent development. If there can be successful transfer of weapon systems like that to Ukraine, that will improve their anti-drone defense. And in theory, such a weapon system would even have applicability, if you use a little creativity and imagination, to apply to the use in the Golden Dome system, particularly if it is used in a space-based mode. So there are promising developments which are not really fully appreciated, but I would agree that the Trump administration has had to learn a very hard lesson about the value of economics-based diplomacy as a means of settling wars. They have now very reluctantly come to realize that there are certain exceptions to their general rule, that not everyone wants to make a deal. Not everyone is interested in prosperity over power. The Russians are out for power, for control, for reestablishing the Russian Empire, and they have very clearly shown to the world at large that they are not interested, that their primary means for achieving that goal is going to be through war and a successful conquest and capitulation of Ukraine. And right now, the military equation is moving in favor of Ukraine, not Russia. And if they continue on this trend, that eventually, I would predict before the end of this year, Ukraine will be in a position to inflict a decisive military counterstrike, which will greatly change the military situation even more in favor of Ukraine.
Well, Jonathan, I'll have a little bit of a question to you that will or may be adjust quite considerably the present outlook of what's happening in Ukraine and elsewhere. You know about the renaming of Defense Ministry in Ministry of War. If we will just play with words, defense, it means defense against everything or everybody, or some China, maybe Russia, maybe whoever else, and so on. Now, war is something different. War means not only defense, but an attack as well. And you don't win war by defense only. You need defense, but you need attack, sometimes even more.
As a matter of fact, President Trump said that same thing, about that you can't win it with defense alone. So there is that. And renaming the Department of Defense the Department of War is certainly a more honest and straightforward statement of purpose, because Department of Defense says pieces are, that would be tantamount to saying peace is our business. No, it isn't.
So with that comes next revelation. especially with everything what's happened with his meeting with Putin and Washington, European leaders and China, and military parade in China more than anything else. Because I guess, as I said before, probably wrongly, that Trump doesn't like to read. No, probably he likes to read, not as much as some other people. However, he understands the pictures. He loves pictures. He loves TV. He was watching on January 6th, he was watching all day on TV what was happening. So with that picture of Chinese military parade, Trump understood the game is over and done. He cannot fight China and Russia, North Korea, and Iran, and whoever else is going to join later on or thinking about joining or so on. Trump loves to win. He doesn't like to lose. So instead of fighting wars with uncertain outcome, and as it's proved Ukraine, Russia, he cannot do nothing at all. So China now demonstrated China is no longer a pawn in Trump's geopolitical game where he can put sanctions or he may not put sanctions, he will do this or that. He knows that this is done and over with. So now his game plan is to make friends not only with Russia but with China as well. If you cannot fight them, you join them. So from now on, Trump is going to fight only wars that he can win. And one of the areas where Trump can fight the wars that he can win are two. One, Middle East, Israel, who is stronger than all Arab countries put together, multiply by 10. Israel can destroy any of these countries and all of them together. So this war is winnable. This is why Trump allowed Israel to do anything what they want in that region with Hamas, with Qatar, with just doesn't matter whom. Just keep on and keep winning. Another area where Trump believes and rightly so he can win the war, it's against American cities, especially democratic cities, where he can, under the guise of immigrants, illegal immigrants, legal immigrants, transgenders, Democrats, pedophiles, and just doesn't matter who, he can overpower any city, any state, and that's a winnable war because nobody can match him and the National Guards and so on. So from now on, a new strategy for the United States: winning wars. Stop meddling with Ukraine. Listen, a few years ago, even a few months ago probably, Trump wouldn't even know what is Ukraine, where it's located, except that he remembers Zelensky and his first impeachment. Okay, that's much he remembers, but nothing else. So why would he meddle there with a very uncertain outcome, which is so far that's what's really happening? Trump is losing considerably his political weight in that Russia-Ukraine affair. So now, complete change in the U.S. foreign politics.
Fascinating assessment, but although I disagree with the strategic intent behind it, but in any case, I would say that the foreign policy approach of the United States is still a work in progress. It is still developing. It is moving away from what you were saying, from the so-called Geschäftsdiplomacy or appeasement. And I doubt very seriously that Russia and China and North Korea you're making a similar error to what was made during the Cold War, when the United States thought that communism was monolithic. It, in fact, was not monolithic. There were competing military interests and political interests, even between the Soviet Union and China. And to illustrate that, as a matter of fact, in 1969, the Russian and Chinese military forces clashed along the Ussuri River. And there was great speculation at the time about, as a matter of fact, a book by Harrison Salisbury of the New York Times, War between Russia and China, as a very real possibility. And doing his investigations, he explored that there were very real political and ethnic antipathies between the Russians and the Chinese. The Russians have, or if anything, quite racist towards the Chinese. And the Chinese, for their part, they tend to regard all other ethnic groups or nations that are not Chinese as somewhat less than human. So the Chinese have their own racist outlook on the rest of the world. All of this tends to militate against the development of a so-called monolithic bloc of Russia, China, India. It is a more, I consider that a very superficial alliance, and the one that can be split, in particular, if the United States succeeds in developing the Golden Dome and progressively is able to, with proper application of space-based technology, as well as other improvements that I have suggested, to be able to neutralize the nuclear arsenals of their major adversaries. If that occurs, then that changes the strategic dynamic considerably. So that is my position on the thing, and we have to agree to disagree on that one.
No, I mean, we don't have so much disagreements, by the way. What I'd like to mention in what you said about clashes between China and Russia in '69, or at that time Soviet Union. Soviet Union was so much superior in every aspect of war that, in fact, I'm not sure if you're aware that the war lasers were used by Russians to burn Chinese tanks completely in a matter of seconds. That was the first time. So whatever now anybody is developing lasers or so on, Russians had it by 1969.
Yeah, and Russians were using lasers during the Cold War. They were even using them in East Germany in certain respects to, in effect, blind certain Allied crews. In operations in East Germany. That was not very well known in the West at all, but it was one of the things that prompted the development and shipment of laser goggles in order to screen out certain types of laser light. Once they figured out what kind of lasers were being used. But yes, the Russians are quite willing to use lasers in various means. But the development of laser technology since then has great potential for being able to neutralize various, not only drones, but as I contend, if properly and efficiently used, could be a very effective part of the so-called Golden Dome strategy. But again, it depends on what platform you put it on. You don't want to create what I've called the Mexican standoff in low Earth orbit, where the side that fires first has a decisive advantage. That you want to avoid.
My worry is about Trump abandoning Russian-Ukrainian track, specifically to understand that, his failure in this, so I called Geschäft diplomacy, but he must find somebody guilty why it didn't work. So he will find Europeans that they didn't march together with the United States. I don't know in what direction, but whatever it is, they're guilty. Remember the remark of Witkov, who said, Europeans, you're all guilty, and then he marched away from the meeting. So now the decision is that today...
Not exactly skilled at diplomacy, is he?
Well, is he a diplomat? Don't make me laugh. Now,
he's a real estate guy. Go figure.
He's a real estate guy. See, the problem is, here is a major difference between real estate and diplomacy, so people will understand. In real estate, you have two parties. One party is over here, another over there. So they're haggling about the price. So they are finding all kind of weaknesses in an other guy position to outweigh and outmaneuver him and make him to lower price and snatch from him that property at the lowest possible price. That's goal. In diplomacy, it doesn't work that way. Even if you win the battle against China, let's see, over here and over there, but the war, the situation still develops further, and there are some other negotiations where they will prevail or might prevail. So this is much more complicated, and especially if motivation on one side, it's a profit, it's a business, Geschäft, whatever, and on the other side, China, for example, they looked 50, maybe even 100 years from now. So therefore, they're taking approach. Okay, Trump. Okay, so another 3.5 years, and then you're gone. Your history. I don't think so. By the way, I don't think that Trump is history in 3.5 years. I think he will
Ooh, hello.
find a way through military actions or some other way to continue to fight for a presidency. Sorry, I know I'm frozen. No, I'm not frozen.
Hey, really?
Okay,
I was
he'll
wondering.
find a way. He has enough time on his side to find how to prolong his time in the office. And by the way, President Putin offered to see that he is about to find a breakthrough how to make life until 150.
Oh,
and maybe
yes.
even that. So they also have
That-
plans.
Yeah. I smiled when I heard about that, saw that conversation, because here is Xi and Putin talking about extending their life and achieving over immortality through a series of transplants, organ transplants. That's what they were talking about. You can have organ transplants and essentially extend your lifespan, to 150 or greater, and achieve immortality that way. Well, the only thing I have to say about that is that God has much more say in that as to how long you will live. In that, from my standpoint as a Christian, you do not live for 1 millisecond longer on this earth than God has decreed. There's a natural barrier.
The good thing about this conversation is that they both want to live as long as possible. Therefore, there is no danger of thermonuclear war, of what everybody is scared, and politicians and people, and oh my God, they have a missile. It must be a thermonuclear missile. Oh, they have this and they have that. It's all garbage.
And because they're realizing that a nuclear war is absolutely no good if you are unable to survive your victory. So it's one of those things, and this is why, as a matter of fact, this is why Xi and Putin regard the Golden Dome as, in their words, highly destabilizing. Because it does not, the Golden Dome, as you must understand, it does not threaten their existence. It threatens their power. It threatens their ability to use their nuclear arsenals as leverage to intimidate the West with the fear of nuclear escalation. And essentially, the good part about the Golden Dome is that if it succeeds and if it is properly reinforced with as I've recommended, an upgraded Space Force to be able to handle other threats to the planet, and for one thing, for doing things like cleaning up space junk, which producing all those satellites is going to produce an awful lot of junk in Earth orbit. So there are other things which need to be considered. But right now, it is a very, well, to use the word to quote the character of Mr. Spock from an old classic Star Trek episode, fascinating. It is fascinating, and sometimes not a little bit terrifying, but every age has had its moments of terror and discomfort. But this is especially so because of the dynamic nature, and we're all aware of the dynamic nature of the discussions and the actions that are being taken by both sides. And again, just getting back to the focus on Ukraine, it is still my contention that the opportunity is approaching for Ukraine to throw that decisive military counterpunch. They're already doing it on certain levels, and they're counterattacking locally and making gains and reversing Russian advances. So there is growing opportunity for Ukraine to force a victorious conclusion, contrary to the expectation, by the way, of most Western military experts. Well, I believe one is possible.
One of the military experts, of course, is Trump himself, who asked Zelensky, how come you're not sending missiles to Moscow? On the other hand, at the same time, he is getting very upset when Ukrainians hit the oil refineries for Russia, because it worsens Russian military and, in particular, that case, financial capabilities. So
Mhm.
this is coming into complete contradiction, especially when at the time when he asked
Yeah,
about
it's
the
just, yeah, basically, someone just simply needs to remind the president that Ukraine is hitting those areas of Russian economy which are directly related to their ability to make war. And if they don't have the ability to make war or inflict serious damage on the Ukraine, then that is something you should appreciate. And really, again, it is a very interesting situation. But I think that President Trump is going to be educated by this conflict, whether he wants to be educated or not. He's going to learn that there are certain conflicts that you cannot resolve peacefully. You're not going to be able to get he's not going to be able to get a Nobel Peace Prize for negotiating a peace between Ukraine and Russia. Basically, what's going to happen is that there will be an armistice enforced upon Russia through its abject failure to achieve any decisive results against Ukraine. They will be exhausted. They will have to be militarily, politically, and economically exhausted so that they are unable to continue serious offensive operations against Ukraine. And that will be capped by my prediction, going out on a limb here, by a counteroffensive which seals off the Crimea from logistical and military reinforcement, and that will also result in the isolation of Russian occupiers of Crimea, thus opening the opportunity for Ukraine to launch a decisive counteroffensive with whatever reserves they have to be able to force the surrender of the Russian occupiers in Crimea. That will be the decisive moment, in my view, in this war.
Speaking about Russia, just to end the program for today, and thank you both for participation in this program. Russia is going away of the least resistance. Putin is always testing how much he can get away with. That started in 2008, a war with Georgia. He then annexed South Ossetia and Abkhazia, and then 2014, and he got away with all that. 2014, Crimea, annexation of Crimea, the Donbass skirmishes, not skirmishes, it was a real war, and he sent them over there to Donetsk, if I'm not mistaken, his troops from Dnestrovia Republic, who were already tested in a war situation. So he moved them over there, and that famous Strelkov, who participated there and who was guiding Russian forces, and that was going on. He got away with all that. So here comes 2022. He started complete and full invasion of Ukraine. And he's got away with all that. There were some sanctions, there was so on, but it was predictable, and Putin figured out how to deal with that. And now he is escalating while he is supposedly involved in the peace negotiations with Trump. In the meantime, he increases intensity of his attacks against Ukrainian cities, and for him even not as much important to kill as many Ukrainians as possible, is to destroy Ukrainian cities, not only infrastructure, but even the way the city look. So it destroys the culture, the architecture, the business abilities to conduct. Everything is being destroyed once the big city is being destroyed. And his goal is, by the time there will be a peace negotiations, to have all Ukraine reveled. He will not be able to kill all Ukrainians, that's for sure, but to revel as many Ukrainian cities, especially center of the cities, as possible. That's what's happened, and that West is not doing anything. They are not confronting Putin and saying, you are a war criminal, what are you doing? No, they're all hiding somewhere. And now when Trump will announce anytime soon that he is abandoning his Geschäft diplomacy or all other diplomacy, and he leaves Europe against Russia one-on-one, it remains to be seen what Europe is going to do about that. Okay, that's all from me for now. And thank you so much again for today's program. And we'll see you back on Friday, hopefully with good news. And in the meantime, Slava Ukraini. Glory to
God bless America.
Героям
yes.
слава.
Yeah, and Canada and province of Ontario as well.
There you go. Okay, throw those in just for good measure.
Yes,
Okay.
Toronto, yeah.
Yeah.
And all other countries except of Russia, China, and
Yeah.
Australia.
Yeah. We'll have to ask
And
God,
Iran.
draw the line on Russia and China. Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot again, and see you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Right.